What's up, everyone? Buie, back for another episode of Ballin' with Buie, where I cover the hottest topics in sports, especially if they're OU related. Today, I want to talk about Clippers versus Nets and Celtics versus Warriors. Both games happened last night on TNT. Start off with Clippers versus the Nets. Clippers were 1.5 point favorites, which you're not really a favorite if it's 1.5. Pat Bev was out for a fifth straight game for the Clippers with sore knee. Not really sure what that means. But anyways, Clippers opened up the game really strong, 18-6 run. They started shooting 9-11. Once that happened, I thought the Clippers were kind of going to hold their lead for the entirety of the game. I mean, the Nets obviously are one of the best offensive teams in the NBA, but the Clippers coming into the game were 15-1 when holding a 10-point lead or more during a game. Anyways, break down the rest of it. Clippers went cold right after that, shot 0 for 9 to allow the Nets to cut it to 22-16. The big thing in the first quarter was KD could not slow down Kawhi Leonard. He shot 4-4, had 12 points. I think he had a couple from the free throw line. And KD had 2 fouls. He don't remember if he picked up both on Kawhi. But yeah, couldn't slow down Kawhi. And Kyrie Irving came out shooting the ball a lot. Shot the ball 9 times. And he was only 4 for 9 for 9 points. And I thought that could mean one of two things, obviously. Kyrie's going to keep shooting and not hit his shots, or he's going to keep shooting and hit his shots. Clearly. One of those two things obviously did happen. At the end of the first quarter, Clippers are up 32-24 after the Nets cut into it a little bit. Now, Kawhi starts the second quarter on the bench, and the Nets crawled back into the game, got a little tighter, cut it to 39-38, and then Kawhi came back in. And the Clippers never relinquished the lead in the first half. The Nets just got within that 1 point, and they never could take the lead. So Lakers going to halftime up 58-57. Kawhi only had 2 points in the second quarter, which I think was the big reason that the Nets were able to crawl back in with him being on the bench. And then when he came back in, he only had 2 points. At halftime, he had 14. Batum had 10. Paul George had 10 also. And Kyrie ended up having 15 at the half after scoring 6 in the second quarter. KD had 11. And James Harden only had 8 points at halftime, but he also had 8 assists. He's the leader in the NBA right now in assists with, I think, 11.1. And second is Russell, I believe, somewhere around 9. So the gap is pretty big. Harden's leading the NBA in assists, and who would have thought that James Harden would be leading the NBA in assists? Not me. But anyway, start the second half. Nets take the first lead right out the gate. Hit their first shot of the second half. Not too much exciting action in the third quarter. It was just back and forth the entirety of the third quarter. But Clippers in the third up 90-88. Kyrie went for 14 in the third, which was the highlight of the third. I mean, he went for 14, but they still couldn't hold on to the lead or build a significant lead. But he goes for 14 in the third, puts him up to 29 for the game. KD had 19 points at the end of the third. James Harden had 13 points and 12 assists, which is about his average for a game, just at the end of the third. Kawhi got his footing back, kind of how he was shooting in the first quarter. He went for 11 in the third quarter, put him up to 25. Paul George had 18 at the end of the third, and Batum had 17 at the end, hit a couple threes. So we're rolling to the fourth quarter. That's no, they don't open it up. They went on a 13-2 run with about 3.5 left to go up 118-117. And that was the point where the Nets started to gain control, was right there. I mean, I know it was 13-2 run, but they go up 110-104. Then they didn't relinquish the lead at that point. You go to a minute left in the game. They're up 118-111. Now, the Clippers did cut it close. Paul George hit a 3. 24 seconds left in the corner, which Clippers are leading the NBA in corner threes at 51%. Paul George hits a corner 3. They're only down by 1, 118-117. And KD hits 2 free throws, and you go back down. Kawhi hits 2 free throws, and then you go back down, and James Harden throws a full court pass just about to Jeff Green. Gets it and 1, then he misses the free throw. So then they're up 122-119. Then Nicholas Batum goes to the free throw line. It was almost a clear path foul, but they didn't give it to him, just a common foul. Nicholas Batum hits 1 of 2 free throws, and that was about the end of it right there. Nets hold on to win 124-120. Kyrie Irving went for 39, 6 of 8 from 3. Harden had another triple-double, 23 points, 14 assists, 11 boards, and KD had 28 points. Kawhi finished for 33, George 26, Nicholas Batum 21. The Clippers now dropped to 15-2 when holding a double-digit lead in the game. I understand from the Clippers aspect, you didn't have Pat Bev, you didn't really have that strong point guard defender to slow down Kyrie. But Kyrie, since he's come back from whatever was going on with him, has been on fire. No one has been able to stop him. This is the best Kyrie that I've seen in a long time, I think. Everything's dropping for him. I still think that, personally, I think that he's the best ball handler in the NBA. People can argue Steph Curry is. I mean, either way, I don't care, but I would take Kyrie all day. His ball handling skills are insane. But yeah, that ends that game. We jump to Celtics Warriors. Celtics were favored by 2.5. Wiseman and Marcus Smart didn't play. I don't know how much that contributed to the line at all. But before I even dive into that, I want to mention Draymond Green is only averaging 5 points a game this season. Okay, just keep that in mind. So Steph came out hot. He's never shot below 40% from the three-point line in his career. He's riding about 41% right now, real close. I don't think he's going to drop below 40, but that's where he's at right now. But anyway, Steph comes out hot, hits 3 threes in the first 4 minutes, finishes with 17 points just in the first quarter. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are both averaging 26 points per game. But they didn't score too much in the first quarter. Golden State had a 35-24 lead at the end of the first, but then Steph sits out, which he always sits out to around the 5-6 minute mark in the second quarter. But I thought that was entirely too long for this game particularly because you're short-handed. And he just went off for 17. I mean, he's hot. No, I wouldn't have sat him that long. But anyways, he sits. Celtics cut the lead to 40-39 with Steph on the bench. And then it's all knotted up at 52-52 at half. And Tatum and Walker combined for 26. Brown struggled in the first half, only 3 9 7 points. And Steph only added 5. A couple minutes he was in there to have 22 at half. And Oubre had 11, but he also picked up 3 fouls in the first half. Excuse me. Now, not too much happened in the third quarter. Boston was up by 1, 86-85 at the end of the third. So I'm just going to jump to the fourth. Fourth quarter, Boston goes on a 10-0 run with about 4 minutes left and puts them up 106-96. And that was kind of the end of it right there. I mean, Golden State answered with a 6-0 run with about $1:30 left to make it 106-102. But yeah, that they couldn't crawl back close enough. Steph missed a 3 late. And, I mean, Steph wasn't hitting, then it definitely wasn't going to happen. The Celtics hang on for the win, 111-107, without Marcus Smart. Steph Curry, I mean, he couldn't have played much better. He had 38, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists. And second leading scorer, just starter-wise, was Andrew Wiggins. He only had 15. Draymond Green, 1 for 7 with 2 points. Now, he did have 11 boards, 7 assists. But Draymond Green, a lot of people see him in different ways, but I don't think he's that good. I mean, defensive-wise, yeah, he all defensive player, several years. But offense, you're supposed to be an all-star, and you shoot 1 for 7, and you're averaging 5 points a game in the NBA? How are the Warriors supposed to do anything in the playoffs? Well, make the playoffs. They're riding teetering on the 8 seed right now. I mean, there's still a lot to go, but what are you contributing on the offensive end to leave you in the game? I mean, I understand that you're an all-star in the past, and I mean, you may be an all-star again this year just from a defensive aspect and a fan-pleasing aspect, but you're averaging 5 points a game. That's just not going to cut it. Tatum ended up having 27, 9 rebounds. Kemba Walker had 19. Brown ended up picking it up in the second half, finished with 18 points and 10 boards. We'll see what happens. I think the Celtics are a dangerous team. They haven't been able to play all together too much this season, and they haven't all stayed healthy. They all just came back, and then Marcus Smart out, so it kind of sets them back a little bit. And we'll see what happens with the Warriors. I mean, I don't know what else is supposed to happen with them when you don't have a Klay Thompson, obviously, and then you have a Draymond Green who's only contributing 5 points a game. So that concludes this podcast. Consider subscribing like always, sharing. Deuces.